Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. This is our August 2026 version of our meetup. We have a fantastic presentation today by Jay. I will introduce Jay in a second, but before I jump into that, let me talk about this meetup group. So Jay actually was the founder of this meetup group along with Ron. This happened a few years ago. It started as an in-person meetup in San Francisco. And during COVID, we switched it to a virtual meetup and we grew exponentially during COVID. And we used to do like 2 or 3 meetups a month at that time during COVID. That was crazy time. We have continued to be a virtual global meetup. We are pivoting towards not just from enterprise agile or scaling enterprise agile, but also looking at scaling AI, enterprise AI, as well as scaling enterprise data. So this is something that we are still working through in terms of what should be the new name of the group. So we have some ideas. We are doing some A/B testing at this point in terms of the names and all that. But due to the changes in time, any enterprise these days, when they are looking to scale, it's not just the agility portion of it. It's the AI portion of it, which includes the organizational side, the process side, as well as the technology side. So we are trying to bring it all together. And today's presentation is no different. This is an experiential presentation from Jay from his big pharma. Jay, I have known Jay for a few years. He is a tremendous intellectual, great human being, and great collaborator. He has driven he has been a leader in the West Coast for services and solutions for a long time, driving solutions with major companies. And now he moved to Indiana like 2 or 3 years ago. And he has been working with big pharma for the past few years, driving their AI transformation. So Jay brings depth and breadth of knowledge about the transformation. And today we are going to hear from him the challenges and the learnings that he has gone through for the past few years with them. Rob, Ron, did I miss anything before I hand this over to Jay?
I think it's worth noting that we have another speaker scheduled for October, Alex Thoreau, who is going to speak on no silver bullet in AI, but modern software development. And Alex is coming to us from Germany, so we are having a noon Pacific meeting in October to hear Alex.
Yeah, very good point. So we have talked about technical debt with software. He's going to talk about context depth as well as intent debt. So these are different dimensions that AI has introduced with the changes and the evolution we are going through. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, I think you covered it. I'm really getting excited to listen to Jay.
Wonderful. All yours, Jay. Thank you. You're on mute.
All right, sure. I know how to push buttons. Thank you very much, Gopal. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's working. So I'm going to say this, but I can't repeat it. So the large pharma company he's talking about is Eli Lilly. So they have been on an AI transformation since the beginning. So Gen AI came out in 2022, changed the world. Well, it's still changing the world, whatever. I'm going to talk about that. And now I'm also working for another company called Project Brilliant. Well, I'm still only employed. This is interesting to help do AI transformations or implement AI in other companies. So I'm going to talk about my real world experience, and then I would like to hear from you all. So you can ask questions as I go. If some of this doesn't make any sense, then it's probably because of me. And you can ask the question, or you can wait till the end. So it's going to be like 45 minutes. I'm probably going to zoom through some of this rather quickly and slow down on certain slides. So let's start. So this is me. This is my family below. So I lived in San Francisco for many years. And then I got a job. And I said, okay, do I want to leave San Francisco and go to Indiana? Oh my God, we did a lot of research because I'm gay and San Francisco is the gay capital of the world. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to a red state. Do we really want to do it? And it's Indiana, the Midwest. I never lived in the Midwest before, but this is, I liked Eli Lilly, and so we made the move. And so far it's been okay. I mean, it's more affordable, number one, and number two, the people here are really nice, but they're nice superficially, I guess, but because they're still voting for people I wouldn't vote for, right? So anyway. So we moved here, and we're doing what we need to do to thrive and survive. So I've been doing all this stuff for 40 years, almost as much as Ron, and I'm still doing it. I'm not ready to retire. I'm not ready to pack it up. I'm still working full time and doing cool stuff and learning. So this is going to be, I wrote an article, I'll share it with y'all later. This is going to be my 5th paradigm shift that I've been involved in, and the details of doing it, right? And you all probably know some of the prior paradigm shifts from mobile, internet, all that cool stuff, right? So this AI paradigm shift is still going to follow the J curve. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I think this one's a little different than other paradigm shifts. I think this one's going to be very impactful and disruptive. I think we're already seeing some of that right now. And especially here in Indiana, no one wants their data centers in their backyard. Okay. So I think we're going to see a lot of interesting, cool, socioeconomic things happen with this paradigm shift. So that's my background. I'm just old and I'm still hanging around until people tell me to go away. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about, what is this AI thing? What is the evolution looking like? How does AI and Agile work together? I'm going to provide an argument that companies that are doing Agile ways of working and ways of thinking and are organized around products, platforms, and services will be more successful implementing AI. I'm going to make that argument, and we'll see if you all buy it. Then we're going to talk about, well, what do I have to do to get ready for AI? And I'm going to talk about reality here, and how we stubbed our toes because we weren't ready. Strategy is important. I mean, and I'm telling you, when we started this, we came up with a sort of a strategy to do it, but it really wasn't a comprehensive, cohesive, or coherent strategy, right? So I would argue that if companies are going to do this, you need to sit down and really think this through, and the executives, the C-suite, have to be leading this. We'll talk about that. And then how we measure it, right? How we know we're successful. What the hell are we going to get out of this? And remember, this is very disruptive, like any paradigm shift. And then we'll do some Q&A, but you can ask me as we go. So 70% of AI should deliver by, well, the latest, MIT and McKinsey loves to do research, and sometimes I think they make up crap. But anyway, they right now, the latest estimate out there is 6% of companies that are doing this see any measurable ROI out of this AI at this point. And that fits the J curve. We'll talk about that in a minute. It took years when we moved from mobile or from to the digital environment into internet computers before companies saw measurable value out of it. So that's not anything different. 3x. So this is I going to argue that if a company is organized around products, platforms, and services, and they're really good about doing agile ways of working and everything, they'll be able to do AI better than organizations who are not. And then 4.4 trillion global enterprise AI projected by 2027.
They release y'all to go to connections. Y'all.
What? Oh, you have mute Tori. All right, thank you. So everyone's everyone has a crystal ball. And remember, all these frontier model companies, they're in the business to sell you tokens. So when they tell you to do certain things, please keep that in consideration. We'll talk about that. All right. Here's some more numbers. So yeah, 4.4 trillion, 50% trillion, 72% of companies are now using it. It's like 80% now. ROI 3.5 times X versus the laggards. I don't know where they came up with that number because only 6% actually are getting any ROI out of this. So here's some good numbers. And every time I turn around, there's another number. Every time I turn around, everyone's an AI expert. Remember when Agile came out? Everyone was an Agile expert, right? Same thing. Right. So the consulting business, the consulting engine is still there and it's ramping up. There's some fundamental changes happening though. Here's, I think, is what separates this. So we want to go from, experiments. You got to experiment. You're continuously experimenting and doing discovery, but you can't be in pilot purgatory. A lot of companies are in pilot purgatory and they don't have production ready AI solutions, and we'll talk about that and what that means. So first thing is, what's the value of this? I will argue that the AI paradigm shift is not a technology enablement or program. This is a business and workforce transformation that's going to disrupt a lot of companies and societies across the world. We're starting to see it. Okay. You need to have a product operating model. I'm going to argue that. If you have a product operating model, you're organized around products and platforms, to adopt this, to create a interconnected organization and to reduce the friction inside the organization and these silos, I think this is going to help do it. I already start seeing companies seeing this happen. This is about culture and change. Like every transformation, this is, change management, right? Organizational change. Product thinking is critical. All right. We'll talk about that. And we got to measure what matters. And it's the same thing. Value, what value are we getting out of this? And what is the value that we're measuring? I will argue that this disruption is it's a genie out of the bottle. You either got to get on board or you're going to get rolled over and lost. Okay. And you got to figure out how you're going to get on board. Okay. Because this thing is going. Now, I don't see any way to stop it. Okay. NVIDIA is basically trying to control the whole supply chain, for example. So this diagram, I asked ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, I'll provide some information as we go along about these models and what frontier models do best. ChatGPT out there right now is probably the best frontier model to use or tool to create videos and images. Claude is not good at it at all, but Claude is much better at other things. Okay. But this was generated by ChatGPT. I thought it was fairly pretty and cool. I kind of liked it. This is the prehistoric days. This is the new AI days. And drew a pretty picture and put cool stuff up there. So you see this on LinkedIn everywhere now. Every time I open up LinkedIn, I can tell, oh shit, this was generated by ChatGPT. Okay. So you can do this really easy now with ChatGPT. And if you give it the right prompts and instructions, it can generate really pretty pictures for you. Okay, so I thought this was a pretty picture. So in the future, the notion here, if you're AI powered or what we call AI native organization or company, you are going to be successful. If you're not, you're not. This is the J curve I was talking about. So the J curve, every paradigm shift has gone through this J curve. And there's an S curve too, but I won't talk about that. So this is where we're at in the J curve. So remember, ChatGPT or OpenAI came out with generative AI when? November 2022. So this ain't very old, y'all. Okay. This is still in the adoption and learning mode across the world. But the difference here than other paradigm shifts is this is accelerating much faster. The change and disruption across the world is accelerating even faster than the internet. So when the internet paradigm shift came out, it took a little while for, because you had to build stuff, wires and computers and all that stuff. Same thing with mobile, right? Same thing with the cloud, right? This here is building on top of all that infrastructure that we laid, right? Now this is built on top of it, and it's there, so it's not dependent upon it. So therefore, this is accelerating much faster. So hopefully that makes sense. So I did this whole box over here that says classical AI. So I was part of the Watson team in IBM, and I call that classical AI because we didn't have GPUs back then, and we didn't have transformers. So then so ChatGPT, what the big huge change they did there was transformers and how they did the transform. It's a whole equation on the transfers and tokens. We didn't do that with Watson, and we didn't have GPUs. So once those things came together, that was revolutionary. Okay, and that's a huge, huge change in impact. So when you see that 23 to 25, that generative era, well, we say 23 because it's November 22 when it came out. No one really grasped it until the beginning of 23 of what you could do. All of a sudden, it took off and the world changed, right? So this is a typical J curve that we see with all the other paradigm shifts we gone through. This one is a little different, and I'll talk more about it. Over there on the left in the blue, I don't know if anyone's been around during the Lisp days and the XCon Dart days and the IBM Deep Blue days. But this kind of led up to this. So like everything in life, this was built upon other people and other people, inventors and creators over time. Wow, this is a busy. So ChatGPT created this for me too. Now, what's cool about ChatGPT, I could tell it to change this, simplify it, do everything. But I decided not to show you all that, it'll create really good stuff, but is it really good? It really depends upon your audience. Now, there's a lot of shit to go through and look at and figure out, right? Now, you're all gonna get this deck. I'll send it to Gopal and he'll send it out to everyone, or however he does it now, I forgot. But this picture, if you looked at it in detail and took time to look at it, it kind of makes sense. It's kind of saying that our operating model and our organizational structure in companies is going to change. This is how disruptive this is. This is going to actually change how businesses operate and how they organize. Okay. And it's fundamental. So it's going to change to what we call AI native organizations. AI native and fluency just means you know how to use AI, you know how to use it and when not to use it. And you know how you can leverage it and get the best out of it as it evolves. Okay, that's AI native, right? So every time when I think of a problem I'm going to solve now in a company, I don't think about how I can write a COBOL program for it. I think about how I can use AI to do it, right? And remember, this is probabilistic. This is not deterministic. But now we have methods and architectures now where you can combine and merge probabilistic LLMs with deterministic APIs. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's evolving. But anyway, this is a cool picture. It kind of gives the notion that it's a human machine thing. So the notion here is that AI, the agents and machines that we have, is part of the organization. It's a team. Your AI agent is part of your team. It's not a living human sentient, well, maybe it will be in a future sentient being, but it's not right now. But it's still part of your team. It's going to do your work for you, some of the work, whatever you decide. And these are some of the books in here: Human Machine Rewired, Artificial Organization. Well, I've read so many freaking playbooks, books and frameworks out there. I mean, oh my God, the machine of creativity is working overtime out there in LinkedIn and X. I just have a hard time saying X instead of Twitter. I don't know about you all. But anyway, so it's working out there overtime, and consultants are working overtime. So this is really cool. It's about rewiring your organization. I think it's going to happen. The notion of that little box in the middle up here where it says the missing middle, that's the part of the human machine. You know, Paul Daugherty and James Wilson kind of wrote this. There is a messy middle of all of this too that you have to figure out. And it's pretty cool in the sense that what they're saying here is that what they're thinking is that AI will help what we call an interconnected organization and enterprise, where it's not just products now, but the products and functions are interconnected. So you have end-to-end processes that are autonomous, that accrues across multiple functional areas in your organization and company, and you can automate them. And you make your business process and workflows better. That's the notion. And some companies are doing that. Here's some more pretty pictures from ChatGPT. I just love these pretty pictures. I'm a graphic person. I like to see things. So I'm one of those persons, when you ever work with me on a team, I'm on the whiteboard drawing things and figuring out how we can build things, and how the data connects and all that stuff. I love whiteboarding, right? So to me, this is a form of whiteboarding where I'm creating the whiteboard with ChatGPT, and I'm being very specific with it, saying this is what I want it to say, and go out there and call through all the resources that are public: McKinsey, PwC, Accenture, MIT, Harvard. Get all that shit and make sense out of it and create me an image, right? So that's what it did. And I said, oh, well, this looks pretty cool. I mean, to me, this makes logical sense. So you have a tech stack, right? And this is a typical tech stack I would look at. So if I came into a company to assess or to a diagnostic on their AI capability or their AI maturity, there's several things I would look at. And one of the things I would look at would be their tech stack. Okay, do you have all this stuff, right? And this is an evolution. You don't have to have all of it perfect to begin with, but have you thought about it? And have you thought about how you're going to develop the tech stack, and have you made choices? Are you going to use AWS? Are you going to use Azure? Are you going to have on-prem? Are you going to use a combination thereof? What models are you going to use? And all that cool stuff, right? So that's the tech stack. So you have to define that. And it's going to evolve. Right. So whatever you define today, by 6 months from now, it's going to evolve to something better, hopefully. Then over there on the right, you see this is how it works. This is how AI works. It's really simple, y'all. Okay. You got to have data. Okay. And your data has to be what we call AI ready. There's a certain way it has to be. And then you have to prepare the data so that we can consume it. Then we take that data and we use that data with what we call public models, and we train it. Right now, some companies, like the pharma company I work for, we developed our own models because we were developing molecules and so forth for diseases, and the R&D, the scientists, the organic chemists, and so forth. To do these models, they have to do millions and billions of trillions of combinations, determine what models will work, right? So we developed our own models. Most companies can't afford to do that. It's very expensive. And we have NVIDIA. We actually created a whole supercomputer data center, and we bought NVIDIA supercomputers and GPUs and put them there on prem. So we don't have to pay for any tokens to run our molecular simulations. So you do model training, then you do inferences and predictions. So when you run ChatGPT or Claude or anything, it's making inferences and predictions. It's a probability thing on what you're asking it to do. Then you're going to create some output, some action. You're going to have to evaluate whether it's hallucination or error or something, and the evaluation is part of it. That's the feedback and learning, and then it continuously learns. So when you type in something in ChatGPT or Claude, you say it to go do this, or go use your data, go use Claude, go use SharePoint to do this and everything, and take this data, do that. It's training. It's taking your information and data and training the frontier models on how to use that information and data and knowledge. Okay, so you're expanding it. So now the big thing is Gen AI came out. So do y'all know what the difference is with generative AI and other AI? Anyone? All right, cool. Some people do. The big difference is that generative AI is making decisions, rational, probabilistic decisions, and doing things, creating things from what you tell it to do and the data knowledge it has. It's actually creating things. It's a big difference than what we coded before. Okay. And agentic AI is on top of that. It says, not only am I going to generate, that's why I call it generative AI, generate cool new stuff using information and data that never existed before, based on what you asked me to do. I'm also going now using agentic AI, and I'm going to automate that, doing it the same way over and over. However, the models change, and we'll talk about that. Therefore, you can get some errors and hallucinations. That's huge. That's a huge difference in what we've ever had before. So this is I will argue that the product mindset and product management and product managers are even more important today. We call that human in the loop. Okay, so humans have to make judgment calls on certain things and review things, right? So right now, we can code things using Cursor and other things and Claude Code and everything, and automate testing and everything. So that used to be the slowness of our process was in that area. It's moved. It's moving now to decision and judgment making. Okay, that's where things are slowing down now because people have to be involved. Okay. So you still have to do the discovery, to validate, to build, to measure, and iterate through the whole thing. So you still have to do product discovery and product delivery. So product management now, in my opinion, as well as others, it's a key skill and capability and competency to have. But now you're going to be managing not just the people and the discovery and your customers and understanding them. You're going to be managing agents on top of that as part of your workforce. Okay, huge difference. I would argue that our Agile DNA is the AI DNA that every human being needs to survive in the AI era. So if we look at the Agile Manifesto, all those things that are listed there are still relevant, right? I think a lot of the other Agile principles are still relevant. You still want iterative delivery. So nowadays you can build things really quickly. It's writing a spec and then prototyping it and delivering, and hopefully you get the thing into production and managed service management wise, but we'll talk about that. So iterative delivery is still important. We're going to do things iteratively and incrementally, just faster, right? But some some human might have to be in the loop depending upon the risk category. It still has to be outcome driven. Look, at the end of the day, we're running a business. We're not going to invest in things unless you can determine the value it's going to produce and you can instrument and measure the value. Okay. This is no different, right? Especially nowadays. I don't know if you all know this, but the cost of tokens and the cost of running everything on AWS and Azure and everywhere else, hypervisors, it's going up. And they're doing that on purpose because they know that everyone's moving in that direction. So they're going to increase the cost, the transactional token costs, right? So now you have to be more diligent from an economics point of view. When you say, I'm going to use an AI agent to do this or AI to do that, you really, really have to be able to not only determine the cost of it, but you have to predict the future cost of it, which is hard to do because it keeps changing and going up. So the outcome-driven measurements now are even more important. Customer user-centered thinking, that's still important. I got to understand what the customer wants and doesn't want. I got to be able to say no to certain things, and we have different types of products. You have internal products for employees, right? You have external products that your customers paying customers use, right? And you have platforms. Platforms are reusable components and everything that internal and external product teams and products use. You need to have all three of those at big companies. So, but every one of them, you have to have a customer user-centered thinking. And AI can help you do that, product discovery and customer discovery. You need to have a product operations. Okay, so I think it's very important that everyone has that mindset as we adopt AI, because you got to understand what AI is going to do for your product. So here's the big problem I have. Scrum has been around for a long time, right? So is product management. But when I go to many, many companies, they're not organized around products or platforms. They have not defined their products. Okay, number one, they don't know what the hell their products are, some of them. They know what their external products are, but when I talk about internal products, they get very confused. When I talk about platforms and platform teams and platform engineering, they even get more confused of how that works with products. Then when I talk about how we organize teams, you have to have small teams, and AI is going to help do that. So we can break down barriers inside the organization. They have a hard time understanding that as well. So I always said, product owner, product manager, all that came out. That's cool as part of Scrum. But when I look at organizations, they're not organized around products. They're not defined. They didn't define their products or their platforms or anything. Right. So now AI comes along. Okay, I want to do AI. I want to reinvent or redesign my workflows and processes. You're right. Okay, if I'm not already organized around products and platforms, it's going to make that job a lot harder. Okay. And if I don't have domain experts, so insurance companies, if I don't have a life and P&C and underwriters and so forth, then that's going to be a problem if that's not organized properly. I hope you all agree with that. Agile team. So I also argue that if you have teams, high-performing teams that are agile, working and thinking, they already know this stuff. Okay, they do this. They do it well, right? They don't do tech first thinking. They have definitions of done. They don't skip change management when they roll out stuff. They don't measure the wrong things. They measure the outcomes and the values, right? They don't do big bang deployments, right? They know when to say no, product managers. So I would argue that companies that already have this mindset are better equipped to implement AI and get success out of it. Here's AI readiness. So data maturity, you have to have AI ready data. So your data and your organization, your company is intellectual property. It is your moat. You've got to figure out how to use that data so that you can be competitive, AI will only work well if you figure that out first. And it could be incremental, iterative. You don't have to big bang try to figure it out all at once. You can figure it out based on use cases that you're going to start. You have to have the tech stack. We talked about that. Talent and skills. Well, gosh, we hear about people getting laid off. I'll argue that the companies I know very well in San Francisco Bay Area, they're not laying off people because of AI, because they just freaking hired too many people. Okay, during COVID, right? But anyway, they're using that excuse. But yes, now I can use, smaller teams, smaller number of people to do the coding and everything. But the coding is not where all the work is anymore. That's not where all the human people work is. Okay. Leadership alignment. Gosh, oh my God. Every company I've seen and talked to and worked with, getting the executives and leaders aligned is like, it's a monumental effort. Okay. And if they're not aligned, I don't care what you're trying to do really cool and innovative, it's not going to go as well as you think. Culture and mindset. So we call that AI fluency. So we got to get that out there and everyone's got to start thinking a certain way. And let me tell you, if you don't have governance and risk and your policies figured out and cybersecurity figured out, and you start implementing AI ad hoc, willy-nilly, you're going to get in trouble. So, question for everybody. Take this simple test and see where you think your company is or your organization is. Do you have value clear? Do you have an AI enterprise strategy that everybody knows? It's got communicated to everybody inside the organization and the company and to your customers. And does everyone know it and where they fit in it? Do you have high performing teams? Can they go and build all this stuff and use and learn this new stuff and apply it? Do you give them time to do it? Change. This is change management 101, right? Do you have an effective change management program, team, leaders? Outcome measure. Have you defined the value that you're going to measure? Have you used that value? Look, this is very simple. I'm going to tell you my opinion. All these prioritization schemes that we have, WSGIF, I could just go through all of them. I know. Look, it's really simple. You make a list of the use cases you're going to use. You determine based on some facts and evidence of which one's going to add you most value. Is this going to increase revenue? This one is going to increase revenue 5%, and I've got data and information that says this one's going to increase revenue by 20%. Guess which one I'm going to pick to invest in? This is going to reduce operational costs by 5%, but this one's going to reduce operational costs by 50%. Guess which one I'm going to pick to invest in? Right? The key secret there is you got to have the data and the evidence to substantiate that. Right? And that's product discovery. And you got to measure the ROI. You got the instrumentation to be able to measure it. Okay. And then leadership alignment around a product organization. So take this test, if you will, and see where you think your organization is. And depending on how you score yourself, you will see, oh, okay, we don't have a really good enterprise strategy. I scored myself on a 1. Well, guess where I should start? Probably there. If you already have some technical stuff or outcome measurements of stuff, or you're already a product organization or higher level, well, maybe you don't need to start there. So this is a way you can start thinking about how you can implement AI. Here's some more pretty pictures. So ChatGPT, it's best at creating a Claude and Gemini and Grok and all them. They suck at doing this. But ChatGPT sucks at creating agents too and managing. All right. So AI strategy and journey. So I thought this was cool. It says this is how you do the strategy. Typical stuff we've seen 100 times. The Project Brilliant, that's the other company I'm working for now. I've kind of developed this process that we're going to use on a roadmap. Now, notice that we identified products, teams, and leaders, and AI is in the middle. So that's the foundation. You got to be good at those things, then AI then can be used well. So this is kind of an approach we took, and you can build a roadmap from that. And you have to customize that roadmap. And guess what? You have to maintain it and update it, and you have to execute it because this stuff is changing quickly a lot, right? So this is the how to unlock the enterprise value. I think the foundation is what I just talked about. Then you're going to pick some use cases. You still have to build your tech stack and your AI data readiness, but you don't have to do it all at once, right? You can pick the use cases that you're going to do first and just build the tech stack and the AI data for that. And you keep building up for the next one and next one and the next one until you have a very comprehensive foundation, right? And then once you do that, you're going to start scaling it. So, for example, the company I talked about before, the pharma company, when Gen AI came out in 2022, we developed a strategy really quickly and worked with the executives in 2023 to identify 10 high-profile critical use cases to implement Gen AI and agentic AI on. Okay, and these were significant, right? I mean, just finding out molecules and help developing medicines for illnesses and diseases was critical, right? There's others, right? Like we found to do revenue leakage. There was revenue leakage with some of the pharmacies that were using, and we had to find out what those were and then how to correct that. We used AI to do that. Regulatory, we created a notion of a regulatory scientist, okay? And we created a notion of a digital worker equivalent, DWE, to manage and create these digital staff members, if you will, or workforce, right? And we developed an enterprise data platform and iteratively made the AI, our data AI ready, and created our own models, also using the public models, right? So we went through a whole thing. So we identified to begin with 10 critical use cases, which quickly went to 30, right? And now I would argue that company is very AI native now. And they use AI on almost everything, right? Or that they make a decision to use it or not, right? So it's very important that you follow this process, then you can scale. Because what's happening now, a lot of companies, unfortunately, are implementing AI ad hoc and it's very fragmented. And you don't want to scale that. If you don't have proper service management and ITIL to manage this, especially autonomous agents, you're going to be in trouble. So people process tech, we've been talking about that for years. It's the same thing. The only difference here, like the company, I was the pharma company, we do have a chief AI officer, right? And this person has a really good background in all of this in the domain. So remember, whatever business you are in, your product management and your AI is very domain specific, right? So you have to have domain experts so that they can figure out how to use AI for underwriting, for agents selling insurance, for R&D finding molecules, or a scientist, or whatever. So, and then we built cross-functional teams. We developed a whole product operating model and a product management around that. And you really have to really understand that the product managers are your domain experts, partnered with the technology experts and the AI experts. We created champion networks, COEs, COPs, We partnered with universities and we partner with every, NVIDIA, OpenAI, Claude, et cetera, Microsoft, of course. And then we had to define AI career pathway. So we had to define new careers for people. So product management was new. There had to be a career path for that. So now we have AI engineers. There has to be a career path for that. Data scientist, career path. Okay. So the people part of this is very, very critical. And now everyone's scared of losing their job. So you got to overcome that fear right at the beginning. You have to then develop the processes that you're going to do. And the governance processes are critical, right? And the eval processes, and then the tech stack. We talked about that already. So the other thing, you had to overcome all these barriers. So the job displacement, you gotta nip that in the bud quickly, because that's the fear out there. Everyone's going to lose their job because of AI. But look, every paradigm shift, we had changes in our jobs and skills. Okay. When computers came out and we had office solutions, word processors and stuff, the typists had to learn that and move on to it, right? So almost every paradigm shift, if you go back in history, you can see significant changes in roles and skills. This is no different, right? Trust and transparency. Look, these AI models you run are problematic. You got to figure out how to build trust in the results. Skills and confidence gaps, same thing I just talked about. You don't want to have siloed experimentation where you have, this is what's happening in many companies. We're rolling this out, they're experimenting across 14 different functional areas. Nobody knows what the other person is doing. They're not sharing the information, they're not reusing it. That's got to stop. You got to have a comprehensive strategy. Change fatigue, that's a problem with everybody right now, but hey, that's just the way the life is, in my opinion. So, and on the right there is some of the success levers you can use to solve those barriers. This is governance. So we call it GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. You have to define that very well. And you have to have a group that's responsible for this. So in pharmaceuticals, compliance is huge. You don't want FDA coming in. You're going to get fined if you're not compliant. Okay. Banking is the same. Insurance companies is the same. So there's a lot of regulatory-based organizations out there where compliance is very important. What I'm saying, if you're not a regulatory organization where you didn't ever cared about this before, guess what? Now you do. If you don't have compliance and governance around your AI models and AI agents, they're gonna run amok, and they can ruin your business. So you got to figure all that out and have policies to do that. And guess what? You can create those in your AI agents so that make sure it follows the policies. This is a practical starting point. Discover and align is your strategy. Build that. Do some prototyping, but don't stay in prototype hell. You got to get stuff into production, and then you got to learn and plan and scale. Really simple. One thing I want to point out here is ITM, service management. So ITIL 4.0, now 5.0 is coming out. Guess what? Product and platform is a key component of that now, and service management and service levels and AI. So here's an example of some value instruments you should think about doing. Business value, right? Well, business value is revenue, cost saving. Oh, that's cool stuff. Adoption. So a lot of people measure adoption. Well, how many people are using it? You should be measuring adoption as much. You should measure, don't get me wrong. You should be measuring fluency. How many people are using AI to do and create value in your organization? That's what we call fluency. They know how to use it, they use it, and they create value. Technical, you need to measure that as well. Risk as well, and then of culture. Let's there's other cultural elements you want to measure. So you got to measure all these. I create OKRs for these. When we start, then they turn into KPIs. So this is the cost category. So like I said before, I think the cost economics, let me put it this way. I think the economics of AI is still in the figuring out mode. And I will argue that NVIDIA and these AI frontier companies, they're going to try to get as much as they can and bleed the companies as much as they can until it settles down. All right. And do not do token maxing. That's horrible. You might as well measure function points and lines of code again. Okay. Don't do that. So these are the costs that you've really got to get under control, and you have to have some instrumentation and measurements of this because it's volatile. Because to measure outcomes and value, I got to understand the cost benefit analysis. All right. So these are just examples that you need to really pay attention to. Takeaways. I'm at the end. Takeaways. Agile operating models reduce AI adoption risk. That's my argument. Treat AI use cases like product features in a product organization. Okay. Culture eats AI strategy for breakfast. God, I wonder where I heard that from. Right. And psychological safety drives adoption. Reduce the fear. Value first thinking prevents the pilot graveyard. Don't be investing in pilots that aren't going to go anywhere, but sometimes you don't know until you experiment, right? So you have to have some level of innovation and experimentation and investments. But you should define the return on investment before you invest heavily in it, and you should instrument it. Measure the business outcome, not just model. Everyone's measuring model. Oh my God. Everyone's measuring how many tokens it's using, how long it takes. They have all these complicated frameworks to do it. I'm going like, oh, that's great. Well, what's the value it's producing for my customers and my business? And then last, use your team's readiness score that I just went through. We did it, for all of you that's been in the Agile world for many, many years, we've used a lot of tools and stuff like Agile Health Radar and everything to measure our teams, not just their productivity, but their performance, right? Their competency, right? Their capabilities, right? You still need to do that, right? And this is our little wheel, AI first and AI native. You got to understand the difference between those two. You can look it up. And these are all the companies we worked with. And this is my CEO, Aaron Couple. He wrote a book, Unlocking Momentum, and I'm done. Questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Jade. This is great. Let me kick off with two questions. You talked about culture and people quite a bit in the presentation. So in a big company where you have a software development life cycle, you have architects, you have engineering, etc., right? In the new AI development life cycle, have you seen the role of an architecture, enterprise architecture, as well as the engineering evolve? And from where to where have you seen it evolve?
Yeah, it's evolved and evolving, right? So I would say technical architecture and domain-driven design, anyone that knows what that is, I think that's still relevant. The enterprise architecture is still relevant. It's changed. It's evolved. But now part of your architecture has to include AI agents and orchestration layer and MCP. That's part of your architecture now, right? And now you have to create standards and policies on how everyone will use that, right? You don't want people willy-nilly going off developing architecture and infrastructure. So that, I would argue, should be centralized. Everything else, like how should I use AI? How should I update my business processes, my workflows? You can federate that and put it out there with the domain experts, right? But when they start building it for real and put it in production, That's where I think IT is really, really needed, and the architects and so forth, right? Development and software engineering methodology or approach, I think, is under radical change. You're still going to have requirements in PRD, but most people now are doing spec, prototyping, build, test, production. Okay, and people are proud of saying, I could build this, test it, verify it, everything in 1 week or 2 weeks, right? And when I say that, I mean it's ready to go into production. Okay, that's kind of the wheel we're on right now. I call it the hamster wheel of software engineering. So I see that. Now, there's exceptions to that. If you're working with a very complicated application that has, 110 integrations that you got to work with, right? A lot of ETL and data integrations and so forth, you're not going to get that shit done in a week. Okay. That's still going to take some time. However, not as much time as it used to. If you organize your people and use the tools accordingly. If you use, automated testing tools like Mabel and others out there, and you wrap AI. So I don't know how many of you all use GitHub and create source code and everything. Okay. Oh my God, that has changed significantly, right? I can do reverse engineering. I can do the test. I can tell it to go find all the code and find it. On the old days, when you merged code, you just crossed your fingers and hope that you didn't screw up everything. Nowadays, I can write AI to test all that, validate it, and make the freaking corrections real time. Right? So that I see that has evolved a lot. Now you still need to have expertise in certain software languages, and you still need to have expertise in architecture. You still need to have expertise in engineering and testing. I don't see that going away, but now you can use these tools to help you do your job better and faster.
So if I were to summarize, there are more standards and policies that the architecture has to focus on. And the speed is the biggest challenge, and adapting to the speed for engineering. That is the big one.
Well, I think the thing that people are figuring out now, this is where their heads are, is how I can automate and augment. Okay, so if I have to do testing or I have to review my architectural blueprint or diagrams and so forth, if I have to make sure my Azure or AWS service and everything is connected and working properly and designed properly, how can I write a Claude agent to go out there and look at it and provide me the input that it looked at everything and says, okay, here's my recommendations. Here's what I found. Here's our observations and everything. It just saves my time, right? It could do it for me. Has anyone else out there done that? I don't know whether there's a large group here. I'm curious to see what other people are using some of these AI tools to do their work.
Doug, do you want to unmute and
Yeah, so this is a very timely talk for me. I kind of quit working a couple years ago with the pandemic, and but 2 months ago, I've been getting the itch to do another startup, and I did a lot of startups when I was in Silicon Valley. Anyway, about the same time, I discovered AI and started playing with it with Elixir. I'm passionate about
Oh, yeah.
Elixir.
Cool.
And there's some Elixir, I don't know what you would call them, sharp guys. And instead of writing books, they do videos.
Yeah.
So I just took their videos and ran with it. And the first week, I built 4 or 5 simple MVP apps for a mobile app
Mhm.
with there in Phoenix, and I was very impressed, and I reviewed the code, and it was all great.
Yeah.
So then I got the idea, instead of building one startup, I'm going to build 5 startups. But and from talking to friends who were great designers, or innovation people, marketing guys, uh,
Mhm.
apparently there's AI for both of those too.
Yeah.
And so I haven't played with that stuff yet, and I haven't built any hardcore components.
Mhm.
But all I've done is do the prompt, and I was starting to look at skills,
Mhm.
and then you do the skills, and then you do an agent. Is that the way
Well,
the process works?
well, it's part of it. So for Claude, you're gonna create MD files and skill files, but
Right.
there's other things you gotta do for agents. But Claude Code allows you to generate the real code that you need for agent
That's
orchestration.
that's
Right.
what I was doing. I was using
Yeah, yeah,
Claude. First, I
yeah,
started off with Claude, then I went to Claude Code.
yeah, yeah.
But I haven't done the agent yet. I
Mm.
don't know. I just was very impressed. But my question for you is, you're talking about enterprise.
Mm.
The question I had immediately, because I've done a lot of startups, was,
Hmm.
it seems to me this is a paradigm shift, and
Yes.
for startups. And
Hmm.
now I'm wondering, what people should I be getting to join me to do a
Hmm.
new startup? And it
Hmm.
seems to me, if everybody can use AI, obviously we'd be looking for people who can do AI,
Hmm.
whether they're a marketing guy or a designer,
Hmm.
and maybe we need a lot less developers.
Yes.
And
So you
obviously
can,
we need
yes,
product oriented people, but
yes.
the anyway,
Well, you need
that's
domain experts. Whatever you're
yeah,
selling, you need somebody to understand what the hell you're selling, right? And
exactly
your
right.
customers and everything. And then you can get some engineers and stuff that are really AI fluent to d-
Well,
to build the stuff. You can use Cursor and Claude Code to build shit really quick. Okay.
yeah, that was the amazing part to me. And
Mhm.
I was mostly just doing fintech, which is not
Ah,
complicated, not really. And yeah, so that was my question, was really more about
I
if we
think,
the early stage of startups.
yeah,
Obviously,
I
you're going
think,
to add more
yeah,
people.
I think in the early stage startup, if you're doing that, and you're doing the initial rounds and everything, you come up
Yeah.
with an idea and you can sell it to the VCs. I think that this is the era. So you have the tools that you can do this
I'm
now. You freaking
I'm
don't even
very
worry about the engineering.
I've been jazzed. I really have. Well, you do have to think about the engineering, because you have to tell AI what to do.
Well, yeah,
And
yeah, that's true, but I don't think that's where
build me this,
yeah,
this, and with
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
I know what to build. It's
yeah. That's the
I
secret
don't think
sauce.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And I
so
don't know what people are going to do that aren't developers. I'm not sure I see how they can do this.
well, you still have, in my opinion, you have to have the startup owner's mindset and you have to have an engineering mindset and background too, right? So the domain experts are bringing, like I talked to organic chemists, they say we need this, this is how we're going to look at models. But they don't know how to build that and use AI to do it, right? That's where we come in and say, okay, well, let me figure out how to do that with you, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's been great.
Good. Well,
It's a
I can't wait.
reawakening.
I can't wait to hear your next startup.
Well, that's the problem. It's always been my problem. You know, what do they call it? Problem. We need a problem worth solving.
Yeah.
And that's not as simple as it sounds.
No.
Well,
If
Yes.
the other thing I would add here is that from an AI perspective, previously when we were developing products, software products or hardware products or combo products, we would develop the products to a certain level and then we go through the early adopters, beta, all those things. But 80% of the work is done before we get into that,
Mhm.
unless you take into account like project and solution life cycle in a startup, right? You start off with a project and then the solution and then a product. Now with AI, it's switched. You develop about 20% of the product. You try to fine tune it for another 10%, and then you work with your early adopters to get that 70% correct.
Yeah, but you can also simulate that now. So for example, if you don't know what, let's say you're investigating a problem to solve in the market or in a domain, you can use Perplexity to help you figure that out and go out there and actually see what the customers are and what the market looks like and what the demand is. It'll tell you. It'll go out there and research everything. This is public information. Okay. And it'll give you some ideas, right? There are ideas, right, that you may not ever thought of, right? And then you can cherry pick those ideas and say, okay, well, this is the one I'm going to go after because I know this one really well, and I think this is ripe to go after, right? So you can use these tools to help you figure that out.
Yeah, I think we are talking two separate things. What I was answering was once you have an idea, to get to a solution for the idea or the problem, how you go through the development life cycle, I was saying it is switched. Previously, it was like 70% in-house, 30% with the customers. Now it's the other way around.
Yes.
Where you do 30% in-house and 70% with the customers. And that's what I was trying to add to what you said, Jay, which was like, Doug, when you're trying to hire people, you don't hire for that 70%, you hire only for the 30% in-house. You need forward deployed engineers or forward deployed advisors to get that 70% done for any solution or product you're thinking of.
Yes, that is correct. And we've been saying this for eons, you all, in the Agile world, right? We've been saying that, you got to simplify things, you got to have small teams, you got to break down the silos in the organization, yada, 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 right? I think this AI stuff will help that happen.
Yeah, because you can just build things so quickly.
Yeah, that's good because we should be thinking higher level, right? More strategic, right?
And it's easy to experiment.
Yeah.
Because you can build it so quick. So you would, whereas before you might not have done something, or you would do it, but it takes a while. Now you can build it very quickly and test it, and I think
you
you'll
can
do
test
that
it with your real customers.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Doug Levitt was posting something in the chat. Do you want to come off mute and talk about your forward deployed engineer experience, Doug?
I think I'm off shot right now. Yeah, I was just commenting that we use forward deploy engineers kind of in the model that you were talking about, Gopal.
How extensively do you use it?
I'm sorry, pardon?
How extensively do you use FDEs?
Extremely. It's very aggressively used. I'm doing something a little bit different with this startup, but it's a brave new world that I'm experiencing, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's very, very, very aggressively being used, and of course, everyone is using AI to develop the code. It's been a fun experience. Fun for me getting to use it more and more than I had in the past.
And where do the forward deployed engineers report in the organization, Doug Levitt?
So right now, it's a quasi professional services type group, but they
Got
don't
it.
call themselves professional services. Um, and it's a startup, so it's extremely fluid. Like roles and responsibilities change all the time. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked was for learning because I can see FDEs in the product organization, in the services organization, or in a separate innovation organization as well in a company. So I was just trying to understand. It sounds
yeah,
like you guys are still thinking through it.
well, the thing is, it's a startup, so something, someone sneezes and they reorganize immediately. And so if you were to define a formal organization, it changes all the time. Even I've just been with them like almost 6 months. Um, uh, uh, and it's pretty weird how fast not weird, it's a startup, so you always expect rapid change, but it's changing even more rapidly than I've seen at prior startups I've worked with.
How big is the
Yeah.
headcount?
Um, they've been growing. I would guess they're in the roughly around the hundreds
Okay, so it's not
people.
like a few people in a garage. You're
No, 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 no. They're actually at the point where they have 30 to 40 customers, and they're trying to figure out how do we scale what started off small. So
more
so
than
it's an interesting problem
more
to be around.
more
Yeah.
than one tribe, as we call it in Agile. We used to.
It's yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, it's interesting because there is no process there. No agile, no nothing. It's chaotic agile, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
Extremely responsive. Almost chaos. It would probably horrify some of the people that are used to Scrum and things like that.
Yeah, so IBM just did a big announcement. That's what they're doing it for. And I said, other companies doing the same thing. But my question always go, all right, cool. You're going to send an engineering group and over to build shit. What are you building for why? What's part of the strategy? Are you measuring the value? When I ask these questions, like, oh, we don't care. We just want to get this shit built and stuff out there. I'm like, all right, give me some of your money.
So when I was at Apple
Mhm.
managing the UX of the Macintosh, managing the development team of the UX of the Macintosh, I was hiring for customer empathy. I was
Oh,
hiring for stellar C++ and customer empathy. And I thought, okay, so I'm like 5 years ahead of everybody else. Everybody else would be hiring for customer empathy in 5 years. It's like nobody hires for customer empathy. Where are we now? We need to hire for customer empathy.
exactly. Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that it's changed. That's what I'm saying. The engineering part is getting taken care of, sort of, right? You still need those people, those competencies and expertise, but I think it's shifting now more to strategic customer market value type of thing, right? And now the human beings have to make those decisions and judgment calls.
Yeah, what's gonna be a customer outcome as opposed to, oh, sure, I could do that. So I think this is a good transition to Ivandro's question in the chat, Jay, and I think
Mhm.
you were gonna speak to that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
this
and,
is
and so maybe we can have Ivandro. No, well,
yeah.
he put it in translation. So, Jay, do you want to just summarize his question as you answer it?
Yeah. So unless Evandro wants to come on board and verbally say it.
Well, he was using a translator, so he may
Oh, he's
not.
using a translator. Oh, got it. All right. So, he was saying, based on my experience in this project, have you seen or had any difficulties with architects or software engineers, stuff like that? of them doing this stuff for 30 years. And then all of a sudden, they got to learn this new way of doing stuff, right? And figure out how to use it. And then they have to relearn or learn something new, if you will, how to design software. And of course, there's some resistance there because you're asking them to do something new and learn something new rather quickly, right? And then do you wait for the curve or do you go out to the market and find experienced professionals? Well, let me tell you, the answer is yes and no. So some people, every human being's different. Some human beings like me, and I'm freaking old, and I love learning new stuff and applying it, right? Some people do not, right? And they want to do what they've been doing for 30 years. They don't want to change, right? Well, unfortunately, I'm going to say this, you got to get rid of those people. If they can't be upskilled, they're going to pull down the organization and the company, right? So that's number one. So if those individuals are not willing to change and learn, then you're gonna have to pull a trigger. I'm sorry. All right. Then you're gonna have to hire other people to come in and do that. Now, do not make the mistake that, oh, young people are already thinking this way and they can learn this and they're adaptable and they're gonna come in. That's not always true. Age has nothing to do with it. Okay. It's their mindset, their mentality, and them as a human being, right? So we've had to do that. We had to let some people go, right? And we had to hire new people. So like I said, when we doing those 30 use cases and we were implementing AI, we looked across the workforce and we had to hire 150 new AI engineers. This includes data scientists, ML people, engineers, so forth, because we didn't have it. And we wanted to get things done. We're developing medicines and patients and human beings are dependent upon us, right? So we had to make those hard decisions. I hope that answered your question, if I'm the best I could politically.
I would have one other observation in an earlier time, like nobody, there were engineers who coded in COBOL
Mhm.
and never wanted to code in anything else.
Right.
They became more valuable, actually, and particularly around Y2K, they became more valuable.
Yes.
But in this case, I don't think that's true. I don't think that being stubborn gets you more value because AI can come in and code in COBOL. AI
Right.
can figure out anything that's old.
Right.
It can figure out legacy code better than anything that you've come across before. And so
Yeah.
being stubborn is going to get you out of having a job.
Right. And I think the most important thing nowadays in businesses is those people who understand the business processes and the end-to-end user experience and how everything works across the company. People have been in the company for 20, 30 years. They know your shit better than anybody. They know where the skeletons are. All right. That's invaluable. Doug, you have your hand up. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to mention because I was working with a big pharmaceutical, and there still is, they're trying to go all in on AI as well, but there still is a lot of theater happening.
Yeah.
From I'm no longer with them, and it's kind of like, oh, these guys haven't made any progress. They probably won't because of all the theater.
Mhm.
It, I'm sensing there's going to be so much disruption coming up. It's not going to be funny.
No, I agree with you, Doug. I think only the strong will survive,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? And I hate to say that, but we're at a time now to where if you can't figure this out and make it work for your profession and you as a human being, you're going to be lost. You're going to be lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So what I've found is that my skills that I had long abandoned as an engineer and as a product owner and stuff like that are proving extremely valuable these days.
Yes.
Because I can code again without having to write code.
Right.
You know, I have I have a virtual team underneath me. You know, I have my coder, I have my business analyst, I have my code
Right.
reviewer, I have
Right.
my tester, and
Right.
all I need is my imagination to tell them what they need to do, and then they get to make most of the decisions. I just have to make the hard ones.
That's right. You are the Peter Pan of today. So I always tell everybody that people, oh, what the frick is he talking about? Well, it's because they never read Peter Pan. But you create the magic, right? You have it, right? So that's important nowadays, right? And having that knowledge and wisdom is what's needed, right? And I think that's a very important way of thinking nowadays to keep you relevant, right? And I agree with you 100% that uh, I think the people that are going to add the most value using AI and leveraging AI is those that can figure out when and how to use it.
I'll say one other thing that I found has been interesting is the cognitive load of using AI
Yeah.
for a day. Sometimes it's off doing a task and, I take a sip of a water or something, but I have to be on the ball and think through this stuff. It's good for the old brain. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but it's time consuming. And that's the other thing I have conversations with people on next. Oh, we're going to do this AI, we're going to do this AI fluency, we're going to train everybody, everything. And then my first question to leaders is like, really? Have you managed or determined how much time it's going to take for every individual? So if I have a team, okay, I'm going to make a joke here. So y'all are probably as old as I am. If you can remember, did anyone start coding in assembler and everything in MVS? All right, cool.
College.
Cool. Then we went to COBOL and Fortran. We said, oh my God, it's another level of abstraction. Oh, I like this. I don't have to freaking worry about the memory and shit like that, right? I can code this and tell it what to do. Then we went from that to C and C++ that Ron did. It's, oh, there's another level of abstraction, right? And now, then we went from that into Python. Oh, Python is another freaking level of abstraction. It does some shit really bad though. And now we've gone from that to AI generated code. Just like the old case tools. I don't know if everyone used case tools back in the day, right? Knowledgeware and shit like that, right? Except this is much better. So now, if you take that type of evolution, it's the same thing for us as human beings, right? Now we take all that knowledge and wisdom and everything. We have that engineering knowledge and talent, and then we know how we can apply AI and how we can generate the code to solve the problem. I don't have to worry about all the freaking details of the COBOL code and the freaking Fortran code and a C++ freaking code. I let it freaking do it, right? I just tell them what I want, right? It's a freaking amazing.
Yeah, this has been
Go
a
ahead.
great, yeah, this has been a great discussion. We can go on and on. But let's, I mean, what Doug Levitt was talking about is the topic of our discussion next time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, you're the straight man here, Doug. So it's like, as I mentioned earlier, we have Alex from Germany who is going to talk about cognitive debt and intent debt in software development in the age of AI. So if you haven't registered, please sign up for it. Jay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Please send me the slides. I will distribute it to everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Great talk.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks everyone for participating. Good to see you. See you next time.
Thank you all.